history's most shocking betrayals and conspiracies. In the shadowy corridors of our past, there exist acts of betrayals whose treacherous actions had far-reaching consequences on nations. From the spine-chilling defection of Benedict Arnold, whose name still echoes with infamy, to the explosive conspiracy of Guy Fawkes that nearly reshaped nations in flames. Let's embark on a journey through history's murkiest waters to unveil history's most shocking betrayals and conspiracies. These were the men and women who rewrote the pages of history with ink dipped in duplicity, leaving an indelible mark that still sends shivers down our spines. 1. Benedict Arnold's defection. Benedict Arnold, a name once synonymous with bravery, was initially a shining star in the American Revolution. He was the very definition of a patriot. But, as they say, the brightest stars can cast the darkest shadows. Amid a bitter war for independence, Benedict Arnold did the unthinkable. He plotted in secret, whispered with the enemy, and ultimately defected to the British side. Arnold felt undervalued and unappreciated by his fellow American officers and politicians. His financial situation worsened, exacerbated by mounting debts accrued while financing his military operations. These grievances festered within him, creating a fertile ground for treachery. Under his command of West Point, a strategically vital fort on the Hudson River, Arnold entered into secret negotiations with the British, offering to surrender West Point in exchange for a substantial sum of money and a commission in the British Army. Arnold's betrayal sent shockwaves through the young United States. It wasn't just about a general switching side, it was a betrayal of trust and a crippling blow to the American Revolution. Even after Arnold's treason was discovered, the legacy of suspicion persisted among American leaders for years, making it more challenging to coordinate efforts and build a cohesive military strategy. 2. Conspiracy against Anne Boleyn. Step back in time to the opulent and treacherous court of Henry VIII, where political alliances were forged and shattered like glass. Anne Boleyn, the enigmatic second wife of the king, was at the center of this Tudor drama. Imagine a court seething with ambition, where every move was a calculated dance for power. Anne Boleyn, who had once captured Henry's heart and sparked the English Reformation, found herself ensnared in a web of conspiracy. Her swift and dramatic fall from grace involved accusations of adultery, incest, and treason. But who were the key players in this sinister plot, and what motivated their betrayal? As Henry VIII's chief minister, Thomas Cromwell played a central role in orchestrating the plot against Anne. His motivation was primarily political. Cromwell saw Anne as an obstacle to his reformist and Protestant agenda and believed that her removal would secure the king's favor and strengthen his power. Not only that, Henry VIII himself was involved in the plot against his wife. He desperately wanted a male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty's future, and Anne had failed to provide one. Rumors of her alleged infidelity and the pressure to secure a legitimate male heir fueled his willingness to entertain the conspiracy against her. After the execution of Anne, Henry declared himself the head of the Church of England, marking the beginning of the English Reformation. This break from Catholicism reshaped the religious identity of England and severed ties with the Vatican. To consolidate his power and wealth, Henry VIII initiated the dissolution of monasteries, seizing their assets and lands. The English Reformation sparked religious turmoil and conflicts, as England oscillated between Catholic and Protestant influences over the centuries that followed Anne's execution. Did you know that Anne's inability to provide a male heir ultimately led to the succession of her daughter, Elizabeth I, as the Queen of England? This conspiracy against Anne forever altered the nation's religious landscape, and her legacy continues to be felt in the religious diversity and cultural identity of modern-day England. 3. The treachery of Vidkun Quisling. Did you know that Vidkun Quisling's name became synonymous with treachery and betrayal, giving rise to the term Quisling in the English language? In the tumultuous era of World War II, Vidkun Quisling's name went down in history for all the wrong reasons. But how did this name become synonymous with treachery? Quisling, a fascist, not only welcomed the Nazis with open arms, but actively collaborated with them. On April 9, 1940, the day of the Nazi invasion, Quisling declared himself the leader of Norway, despite having no legitimate authority. He offered his loyalty to Hitler's regime, providing them with vital information about Norway's political and military landscape. Quisling's regime facilitated the persecution of Jews and political opponents, leading to arrests, deportations, and loss of civil liberties for many Norwegians. Vidkun Quisling's betrayal of Norway was a dark chapter in the country's history, characterized by his willingness to collaborate with a brutal occupying force for personal gain and ideological alignment. His actions left lasting scars on the nation's psyche and a legacy of shame and infamy. Quisling's collaboration with the Nazis subjected Norway to brutal occupation, resulting in immense suffering for the Norwegian people. Civil liberties were curtailed, and citizens faced oppression, hunger, and fear. 4. Kim Philby's Espionage. Imagine a world where espionage is a deadly game of secrets and loyalties, and the most dangerous spies hide in plain sight. Let's enter the world of Kim Philby, a name synonymous with betrayal. He was not just any spy. He was a high-ranking British intelligence officer working undercover for the Soviet Union. Imagine his skills that he operated within the heart of British intelligence, MI6, for 2 decades without getting caught. He secretly passed crucial information to the Soviets. The intelligence he leaked compromised countless operations, putting lives at risk and altering the course of history. He systematically passed critical intelligence to the Soviets, undermining numerous missions and compromising the safety of agents and assets. Philby's betrayal led to the exposure and capture of several British agents and assets, many of whom were arrested, imprisoned, or executed by Soviet authorities. However, the impact extended far beyond individual missions. Philby's betrayal cast a long shadow over the entire Cold War, forcing nations to re-evaluate their intelligence operations and leaving a legacy of paranoia that still echoes in the corridors of power. 5. Guy Fawkes, a fiery conspiracy. In 1605, it was a time of religious strife and tension in England when the Gunpowder Plot, a diabolical scheme, took place in history as one of the most audacious conspiracies ever hatched. At the center of it all was Guy Fawkes, a name that still sends shivers down spines. Barrels of gunpowder were hidden beneath the English Parliament to blow up King James I and his government. Guy Fawkes, a former soldier, was tasked with igniting the fuse and unleashing fiery chaos. But someone from the conspirators sent an anonymous letter to Officer William Parker, warning him to avoid the state opening of Parliament scheduled on November 5th. The letter mentioned intelligently that a terrible blow would befall him and his peers. When the search of the cellars beneath the House of Lords was conducted on the night of November 4th, 1605, Guy Fawkes was discovered guarding a large stockpile of gunpowder hidden under firewood and coal. The plot's failure had significant consequences, including increased persecution of Catholics in England. The Gunpowder Plot was widely seen as a Catholic conspiracy against the Protestant monarchy. His gruesome execution was a public spectacle, stirring anti-Catholic sentiment and outrage. The episode reinforced the religious divides in England. The Protestant establishment became more determined to suppress Catholicism, seeing it as a potential threat to the monarchy and the Church of England. 6. Mir Jafar's betrayal. Back to colonial India in the mid-18th century, a time when empires clashed and destinies hung in the balance. The stage was set for the Battle of Plassey, a pivotal moment in history, against the backdrop of the British East India Company's ambitious expansion. Mir Jafar was the commander-in-chief of Nawab's army and betrayed Siraj-ud-Dawla, the Nawab of Bengal, during the Battle of Plassey. He was discontent with the erratic and oppressive rule of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla, as he had alienated many nobles and court officials, including Mir Jafar. The British East India Company, led by Robert Clive, saw an opportunity in this discontent. They initiated secret negotiations with Mir Jafar, promising him the throne of Bengal in exchange for his support in overthrowing Siraj-ud-Dawla. During the battle, he withdrew his forces, allowing the British to gain a decisive advantage. This betrayal led to the defeat of the Nawab's forces. He sought personal power and wealth, and the British promises of the throne of Bengal were enticing. Additionally, he hoped that British rule would be more lenient and favorable to the interests of the local elite. Following the British victory at Plassey, Mir Jafar became the puppet Nawab of Bengal, but soon realized that he was merely a tool in the hands of the British. Mir Jafar's betrayal not only altered the course of the Battle of Plassey, but also marked the beginning of British dominance in India. His motivations, driven by personal ambitions and dissatisfaction with the Nawab's rule, ultimately paved the way for British colonial rule in Bengal and later across the Indian subcontinent. 7. Betrayal of Augusto Pinochet. In the 1970s, the atmosphere of Chile was politically charged. Salvador Allende was attempting to steer the country down a socialist path, but not everyone was on board. His presidency was characterized by a series of controversial policies, including the nationalization of industries and land reforms. These policies met with strong opposition from powerful business interests and the military. The United States, under President Richard Nixon and the CIA, covertly supported efforts to undermine Allende's government, including funding opposition groups and encouraging a coup. With the hidden support of American intelligence, General Augusto Pinochet's military forces launched a coup against President Allende on the morning of September 11, 1973. The Chilean Air Force bombed the presidential palace, La Moneda, where Allende had taken refuge. Allende died in the palace, and the military took control of the government. Imagine tanks rolling through the streets of Santiago and a nation's destiny hanging in the balance. Pinochet's regime was marked by brutal state-sponsored violence, including widespread human rights abuses, torture, and extrajudicial executions. His neoliberal economic policies transformed Chile's economic landscape forever. While these policies contributed to economic growth and stability, they also exacerbated income inequality and disparities in access to education and healthcare. These scars still haunt Chilean society, with survivors and their families seeking justice and accountability for decades of suffering. Even though Pinochet's rule came to an end in 1990, marking a transition to democracy, the legacy of his military dictatorship continues to influence Chilean politics. For sure, betrayal is a complex and enduring theme that has left indelible marks on the pages of history. Hope you enjoyed this journey in the dark annals of history. Subscribe, like, comment, and click the bell icon to stay tuned for more intriguing explorations of the past on History Duck. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadows of history.